The Florida Gators offensive line haul got that much better with 2 more commitments on Monday.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews on the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with New York Giants on SI. And today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And the Florida Gators added Javarii, Luckas, and Tyler Chukuyem to their 2026 recruiting class. And that now, insanely enough, considering it is June 17th, that now brings Florida to 4 offensive line commits in this 2026 recruiting class. In the 2025 recruiting class, Florida had 3 offensive line commits come in. Obviously, already more than that, and we're in June. In the 2024 recruiting class, Florida had 5 offensive line commits. In 2023, which at this point we've seen quite a few players leave from this class, Florida had 4 offensive line commits. So Florida's already, again, quantity-wise, is already at more players than they brought in last year. 1 less than they brought in the 24 class. They're at more than they brought in this year. They're 1 behind what they brought in the 24 class, and they're at the same for the 23 class. And again, those classes aren't really intact anymore, the ones from 23 and 24. We've seen people leave from them. And so Florida, again, we've talked about this before. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Florida took 6 to 8 offensive linemen in this cycle. I don't know what number the staff wants, but it wouldn't shock me if they ended up in that area. I know that people always talk about the project players. I don't have an issue with it. Javarii Luckas is a 3-star on On3 and 24/7. He is unranked on ESPN and Rivals. He was the first player to commit yesterday morning. And pretty much once Florida started pursuing him and actually pursuing him a couple months ago, it felt like it was going to be Florida, right? He took an unofficial and it felt like Florida. He took an official and it really felt like Florida. And then, of course, now he commits to Florida on June 16th, which was his commitment date. He said it on June 9th. He was like, hey, in a week, I'm committing. And I do think that if it wasn't going to be Florida, because he had an official visit set for this coming weekend with USF, I think that if Florida wasn't willing to take him, then I think it would have come down to, do I want to play power 4 ball at West Virginia, or do I want to stay close to home at USF with a quicker path to playing time, of course. Ultimately, he didn't have to make that decision. He committed to the Florida Gators. He is related to Fred Taylor and Kelvin Taylor. Kelvin Taylor was with him on his official visit in Gainesville a few weeks ago. And when you look at Javarii Luckas, based on his size alone, because I'm going to say that based on his size alone, again, this is not me saying anything that I've been told or passing along anything, but at 6'5", 270, being primarily in high school a right tackle, to me, that tells me that, again, looking at his size, that tells me Florida is probably going to have him work at right tackle and both guard spots. Kind of like Bryce Lovett style, where we don't really expect Bryce Lovett to play left tackle at all. That's not usually in the conversation about anything. That's not usually how Gators fans talk about Bryce Lovett. It's usually, well, he could play right tackle, or he could play both guard spots, or hell, probably even center. It's kind of like that, where you think that you can get a guy that can contribute in multiple spots, might not ever be, an NFL first-round pick caliber player, might not be an elite player at any point, but you kind of watch him play and you go, all right, if we could teach the technique up a little bit, we can get you to at least be a high floor player, someone that's just reliable to go out there, do your job, handle business. And so I could easily see once Javarii Lucas gets on campus, we start getting reports of, they're cross-training him at guard. He's just build-wise, he's the kind of player that they would take there. Also, taking him at this point, considering his ranking and all that, he seems like he's the profile for a player that they're going to take and put in multiple spots. That's kind of just how I look at him. It's not me thinking that he's not good enough. It's not me saying anything other than that. He's got the profile of someone that they're going to move around and they're going to play. I think he's probably going to need to add some weight. He's listed as, again, 6'5", 270. We'll see what he really comes in at when he's on campus. But either way, and Javarii Lucas has openly said, I'm not coming here to play early. I'm coming here to get developed. And so coming into an SEC strength and conditioning program, I'd be very interested to see how they get him up to speed weight-wise, because I do think he's a bit light for what they usually want on their offensive line at tackle, hanging and banging, because you got to move a lot. You got to move other defensive linemen. You got to move big people there. And so his height, his weight, we'll see there. But Javarii Lucas coming in, and he's the blueprint, right? He's the blueprint for the offensive line recruiting that we've been talking about with Florida. This has been their offensive line blueprint. This has been their calling card here, right? They're going to get an athletic guy, which Javarii Lucas is athletic. They're going to get a guy with long arms, which I don't have the measurements. Oftentimes we don't get those measurements until either Florida releases them, a Florida writer releases them, or they go to the NFL Combine. But Javarii Lucas's arms look pretty damn long, and so it's like an athletic guy with long arms and a nasty streak to his game. That's what Javarii Lucas has. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the guys with the physical traits that you can't teach, you can't train, and the guys with the mental traits to dominate. That's really like guys that go out there and they like to ruin people's day. That's what they're looking for on the offensive line. Javarii Lucas fits that to a T. That's what he brings to the table, and that's what I think many of us have come to expect on the offensive line recruiting. The thing is, they draft all these guys that are raw and need a lot of work, and you could talk about projects. We'll talk about the projects in a minute. But they bring in guys that have all this work that needs to be done. And it's always been the point of that's a fine strategy. I respect the confidence as a coach. I respect having the confidence in your ability to evaluate guys you can train and the confidence in your ability to develop those guys. But you got to win games to stay here throughout that development. And we're at the point now where soon it's going to be all Rob Sale offensive line recruits. And so we'll really find out how that works out. But for the time being, we're still watching him work with prior coach commits and a couple portal guys, of course. But trying to figure out long-term what that's going to look like. We're going to see 2026's offensive line for the actual team is probably either going to be really good if the plan is working for taking these guys and develop them, or really bad if the plan's not working. But screw it. We'll find out, right? We'll find out. We're going to talk about Tyler Chukuyem, the other Florida Gators commit, on Monday when we get back with Locked On Gators. There's nothing quite like the NBA playoffs, right? The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you want to experience live. And this year's finals, already delivering, right? If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest games. There's only a couple left. It could end. It could end in the next one. You never know. Prices on the app drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time's a total game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free with the podcast and on YouTube. Tyler Chukuyem committed to the Florida Gators. He is a 4-star on On3. He's a 3-star on 24/7, and he is unranked on ESPN and Rivals. And similar to Javarii Lucas, when we talk about, the the guys that are thought of as more project players, I think more people think of Javarii Luckas as a project than Tyler Chukuyem, which is fine. Not really going to debate you. We'll have our scouting reports probably Thursday on them. I think that's going to be the plan. I think tomorrow we're going to have Kekua Almua, Carson Baker, and Marquez Daniel. And then I think Thursday we're going to have Javarii Luckas, the order would be Jarayla McCoy, Javarii Luckas, and Tyler Chukuyem. So I think that's going to be the plan for the next couple of days with the scouting reports coming out. But when we talk about these project players, again, just because it's been a big thing where, I had people tweeting at me, they're taking too many projects. I don't think that's true. Again, especially if Florida plans on taking 6 to 8 offensive linemen. Because you can say what you want about Javarii Luckas or Tyler Chukuyem, sure, which largely you're basing that off of their ranking and not watching the film. Because if you watch at least Tyler Chukuyem's film, you'll know. So we'll say that. But when you're talking about the projects, like we're talking about bringing in players right now that are ideally, if the rankings stick, which again, I don't really care about the rankings, but if the rankings stick, ideally, these are bottom of the offensive line. Like this is your bottom of the class right now. You might not like that it's filled out right now and that the top of the class is open, but ideally, this is the bottom of your recruiting class right now. So it's not like you're like, oh yeah, you like, let's say you don't like the Javarii Luckas take. He's not your offensive tackle 1 in this class. Might not even be offensive tackle 3 in this class. Might not even be an offensive tackle. You don't know, right? And so it's stuff like that where you cannot like the take right now, which I don't agree with. But also at the end of the day, at the end of signing day, if you've got your blue chip offensive linemen, if you've got these guys at the bottom of your class, you're going to feel really good about your offensive line class. So it's not like you're taking these projects and saying, hey, these are our top guys. These are our top priority guys. It's not always how recruiting works. Sometimes it's, hey, we know we can get this guy right now. Let's lock him down and then we'll put attention elsewhere. Could be as simple as that. But Tyler Chukuyem is someone who is kind of a late target. I think he's going to be one of the biggest movers in the entire country, ranking-wise, once updates come in. Again, because he's a 4-star on On3, 3-star on 24/7, unranked on ESPN and Rivals. And I feel like that kind of player isn't going to stay unranked on ESPN and Rivals, right? Even Javarii Luckas, let's say he stays unranked on ESPN and Rivals. He's a 3-star on On3 and 24/7. Not super surprising then. Tyler Chukuyem, he's a 4-star on On3. I can't remember the last time I saw someone who is a 4-star on one recruiting service and unranked on 2 of them, and it stayed that way. I just can't remember the last time that happened. So I do think that, 24/7 has their update coming in July. I think ESPN and Rivals also updating in the summer. I feel like, when those catch up, then we're going to be talking about someone who can finish as a consensus blue chip offensive lineman, in which case everybody would be like, oh my God, the evaluation there is incredible. Great job, fellas. When really the day of the commitment, they're like, oh, this stinks. That's why we don't react like that, right? 6'6", 290 tells me that Tyler Chukuyem is probably going to stay at offensive tackle, at least at the beginning. That's the kind of size that they like out there. That's the kind of size that they keep out there, the height, the weight, all that. Again, might need to put on a bit of weight or change the body at least a little bit, we'll say. But he's athletic as hell. He's angry. Long arms. He's part of the blueprint. That's it. Like it's not that hard to point out some of these things. They look for certain things at certain positions, right? And that can change year to year, even if the position coach doesn't change. That can change with the position coach changing. Will Harris left. Vinny Sinceri wants something else at safety, maybe. Not saying that's the case. I'm just saying as an example. One thing that has remained consistent, athletic, aggressive, long arm. Those are the guys that they're looking for. Long arms, not just one. That'd be weird. But long arms on the offensive line. That's been the prototype with just who they recruit, not even who they just bring in, but who they're recruiting. They all have those traits. They all have the same things there. I think one of the exceptions would be when they were recruiting Francis Maligo, in which case I think that was just, hey, he's a really good player. Let's take him and figure it out later. NFL, he'll probably be a guard. College, he's a tackle, and that's fine. I think he was one of the few exceptions because I don't think he's got the long arms for it. But he's athletic with the nasty streak. I'm not taking that away from him. We will see how long Tyler Chukuyem stays shut down for, because he was someone who started getting power for love pretty late in his cycle. I mean, for Chukuyem, it was Florida this past weekend. For him, at least, was his first time officially on campus, or his first time on campus for a visit that was scheduled. His first Power 4 visit was Ole Miss in late March. Ole Miss in late March, Minnesota in late April, official visit to Ole Miss, official visit to Cincinnati, official visit to Florida. That's how his visits broke down. Prior to that, it was two visits to USF, one to Georgia State, one to UT Martin, and one to Coastal Carolina. That's it. And then it was Ole Miss, Minnesota, Ole Miss, Cincinnati, Florida. He didn't start getting Power 4 attention really until March. Late March is when he took his first visit to a Power 4 program. And for me, I'm not saying that he's a fickle kid. I don't know anything about him. I'm just saying that when I see someone that gets late Power 4 love and commits fairly early, because again, he hasn't been going through this process for a long time with this caliber school, right? He hasn't. That's again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm being negative. I'm just being realistic about the situation, is that he hasn't been getting this level of attention for a long time. It's possible that throughout the summer, as he gets more attention from other schools that want to go, hey, at least, we'll offer you, we'll keep the conversation open here. It's possible that as those go on, I feel like, again, kids that have these late Power 4 love, Power 4 rises, I feel like they tend to have fall official visits attached to them. And if that's the case, Florida just has to play defense. That's what you're going to have to do with a lot of these kids, regardless of who shuts it down, when they shut it down, when they say they're shutting it down. As far as I'm concerned, the only person I believe is truly shut down until signing day is Will Griffin, and that's because he's earned that by being in this class for so long. He's been in this class since June 1st last year, hasn't taken visits elsewhere. He's been all Gator the whole time. It's nothing against I'm not even going to name someone specifically. There's no need to do that. It's nothing against any of the newer commits. It's just how recruiting is. And until you show that you're going to stay shut down, I'm going to be hesitant to believe that it's truly, completely shut down there. Florida Gators, not done yet on the recruiting trail, not even close to it. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about what might be next for this Florida Gators 2026 recruiting class. Before we even do that, thank you to everybody who's been popping out for these live shows we've been doing, because once a kid commits, we try to go live as soon as possible after the commitment. And when we get to do that, it's fun. We got the chat popping off. We have people talking. We get sometimes, you get a player in there every now and then, or a player's parents. We've had it quite a few times where, player A commits to Florida, we go live, and player A's parents wind up in the comments section or in the live chat with us. It's happened quite a few times. Whether or not you've noticed it, I don't always call it out. But so thank you for being here. I love doing those. It's honestly one of my favorite things about this job is going live after a big commit or after a game. So thank you for joining. If you're part of the Locked On Gators Insider Program, appreciate you. If you want to be part of it, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators, or the link is in the description below for that. It's a fun time. But Florida has, I got 4 guys here that we're going to talk about today that I think Florida should be looking at as potential next commits. All 4 of them were on campus this past weekend. First off is offensive tackle Claude Mpouma. He was on campus for an official visit this past weekend. And after the official visit, he left saying that Florida is his new number 1 school here. He has a visit set to Nebraska this coming weekend. We'll see what he says after that one. If he says, hey, Florida's still number one. Or if he says Nebraska's number one, then it'll be like, all right, well, after Auburn, it was Auburn felt like they were number one, or people felt that he was saying Auburn was number one. After Florida, Florida's number one. If he goes to Nebraska, Nebraska's number one, then we know it's a recency bias thing. But I don't think, because we had people in the chat asking about this before, I don't think the recent additions to this class, the Tyler Chukuyem, Javarii Luckas, I don't think that impacts someone like Claude Mpouma. Partially because I think, again, they want to take 6 to 8 guys in this class, and I don't have that. No one told me that. That's just me piecing together how quickly they're taking guys and how they're filling out the offensive line class early on right now. But part of that is also with the project players, but with the positional versatility of a guy like Javarii Luckas. Because I think when people talk about bringing in Claude Mpouma, it's, well, you've already got 3 offensive tackles committed. If you think Javarii Luckas might be a guard long-term, do you have 3 offensive tackles committed, or do you have 2 offensive tackles and just a chess piece? That has to be part of the equation here when we're talking about Claude Mpouma. So I don't think that presence impacts Florida much. Again, at least from Florida's side. If he's looking at it and he's like, hey, they got a lot of offensive linemen committed now, I don't want to be a part of that, then that's on him. But for Florida, I don't think that it's changed. The positional versatility of Javarii Luckas is there. Being that you brought in, again, project players, we'll call them, I don't think it should matter about filling out the top of the class, because that's what we've been talking about. We've been saying, yeah, you can add the bottom of the class guys now, but when you get the top of the class, then it's all filled out and it feels like a more complete class, and that's what Claude Mpouma can do. Interior offensive lineman Desmond Green was on campus for a visit this past week, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the last player to leave. He was pursued heavily by Florida, was prioritized on the trip. He commits next week. I think it's June 26th. This is a commitment date, which would be next Thursday. And I think it's mostly between Florida, Georgia. I think most people think it's between Florida and Georgia. I'm going to keep Oklahoma in there. I refuse to rule out Bill Bedenbaugh with Oklahoma. I've spoken to players' parents before, and it's like, yeah, well, Oklahoma was the spot that we were really feeling because of Bill Bedenbaugh. And he's a hell of a coach. I see him at the Senior Bowl. He's there every year. He's doing that because they always have guys at the Senior Bowl. And so he's always there repping his guys. And he's there usually multiple days of practice. So great coach there. I know that there are some people that think he's the best college football offensive line coach in the country. Makes sense why he should be in that conversation still for a guy like Desmond Green. Edge rusher Trenton Henderson, he was on campus this past weekend, and coming out of the visit, he said Florida was his new number 1 school. LSU is now his number 2. He had an official visit scheduled for this coming weekend with USC, which, I mean, you can go back and it was like, well, I'm not scared of the USC visit at all. I think that even if a kid from Florida commits to USC, or a kid from anywhere in the Southeast commits to USC, I'm hesitant. I think it has to be a late commit where that's like, all right, well, I can commit. I sit here for a couple weeks, maybe a month or 2, and then I sign, and then I'm there. But I think that there's a very bad track record right now of kids that are from the Southeast that commit to USC early in the year, not early in the cycle, but early in the year, and then end up leaving. We saw it happen with like 7 kids last year. It's just tough to do. Then that visit gets canceled to USC, and now it's rescheduled for Texas. Texas hasn't really been a major player in this recruitment. They are trying to become a major player in this recruitment, and I know that there are people that are like, okay, well, Texas hasn't, established the relationship long-term. I don't think it matters. It's Texas. They got oil money. They got great weather. They got good football atmosphere. Like, they have a lot to sell. So Texas worries me more than USC would have. So we'll see if Florida can, ideally, Florida gets them to shut that down now, like cancel that visit, commit to Florida. But again, like I said yesterday, or maybe it was Sunday. If he does stick with the Texas visit, try to get him on campus unofficially again as quick as you can so you get the recency bias of it. That'd be my plan, at least. Linebacker Malik Morris was also on campus this past weekend. He is the last player that we're going to talk about today from Lakeland. Florida feels like they're the favorite, although he's got Colorado and Missouri visits this weekend as well. I'm expecting a decision by early mid-July for him. I think Florida, again, feels like they're the favorite here. I don't think Colorado and Missouri are true players. I don't think Colorado will. Missouri, maybe. Missouri has gotten a few inside linebackers to the NFL or off-ball linebackers to the NFL lately, including one Tyron Hopper who came from Florida to Missouri. But even then, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's more about Florida or Miami right now from Malik Morris. And many people, myself included, and I think the staff included, and I think even people from Miami staff feel like Florida is the team to beat right now. And so hopefully Florida can get it to happen quickly. Again, I thought Malik Morris was going to pop this weekend while he was on campus. That didn't happen. Not to say it can't happen soon. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow at the absolute latest. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.